How's it going, everyone? Wayne the Unknown here, and welcome to Geeking Out. We basically discuss everything nerd and geek related. I'm joined here with Ryan Brewer in a segment called "What Was It Like Making?" And tonight we are going to be talking about his fan film Resident Evil Breakout. How you doing, Brian?
I'm
Ryan.
doing great.
That's good to hear. So basically, in this segment, what was it like making? We're going to be talking about what was it like making your fan film. So to begin, what made you want to make a Resident Evil fan film?
Oh man, that's a story that goes a long ways back. So about 23 years ago, actually, I want to say somewhere around there. I know sometime around 1998, I was in high school and a huge video game fan and a huge Resident Evil fan. And me and my buddies got this wild idea that we were going to make our own Resident Evil movie. And the task fell to me to write the script. And I'd never written a screenplay before, so it was a new experience for me. But that was kind of how I fell in love with writing screenplays. And I wrote the whole script on a computer that didn't even have a printer and was too old to work for anything.
And this was back in the 90s?
Yeah.
So, oh wow, so almost 30 years.
Yeah.
20 over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there was
And then
no thought of Resident Evil films back then.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't any, and I think the first one came out in
2000 something.
Yeah, 2000 something.
I know apparently not Guillermo del Toro, but
George Romero.
Yeah, apparently he had a screenplay for Resident Evil, but that never came to fruition.
Yeah, it kind of I don't remember what the whole story was behind that, but I know that he had a script and it was supposed to be a pretty close adaptation of the original game, and apparently the studios just didn't like that, so they went with something else. But for me, it was once I wrote that script, I fell in love with screenwriting, and I still have the script too. It's somewhere around here. I don't know where, but I know I have it. I saw it just recently. But it's even got the title page with the old Microsoft Word art from the 90s Microsoft Word. It was, and it's a terrible script. It was absolutely terrible script. But flash forward 20 some odd years later, and I'm a photographer as well, and I do a lot of cosplay photography, and I got hired to do a Leon Kennedy photo shoot. And he and I were chatting a little bit before he came out here to do the shoot, and somehow we got on the subject of getting other people involved. And I have some good friends who are also very good cosplayers out here, and I managed to convince two of them to agree to be Jill Valentine and Claire Redfield, and then we got a couple of zombies, and we just had ourselves a blast. And it just so happens that the two of them, Kay and Bridgett, are also in the movie, and so is Eric, who plays Leon. They're all actors as well.
Yeah, I recognize. I
I
recognize some of Kay's work. I've seen her cosplays over the past year. So I mean, I think she fits the role really well of Claire Redfield.
Yes, she does. And Bridgett really nailed Jill Valentine too. It was crazy. I mean, that's all I could think about the whole time we were doing the shoot was, man, it would be great to go back and revisit this story. And so then I sat down and I started writing up the script, and I had a whole new idea in my head, something that was a little bit more original and not a direct adaptation, unfortunately. But yeah, that's how it kind of came to be.
Do you remember what the original title was for the script 20 years ago?
Yes, it was called Resident Evil House of Darkness. Yes. I don't know why I felt the need to give it a subtitle.
I feel like it's nice to see Resident Evil. I mean, there are some Resident Evil games that have you got Code Veronica, Revelations.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely fits with the overall theme of Resident Evil in the long run, for sure.
And from what I've seen, because I did actually watch the part one, and it was really well done. I can tell it takes place sometime after Resident Evil 5, because I remember seeing Jill having flashbacks of when she was under Albert Wesker's control for Resident Evil 5. When she was wearing that plague doctor mask.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it's I think originally when I wrote it, I had the idea that it was going to take place sometime between 6 and 7, but the timeline, the chronology, when I was looking it up, because I wanted to be as accurate as humanly possible.
And let's face it,
I was like, six's timeline is like all over the place and kind of encompasses the whole year. And I was like, well, I'm just going to jump over 7 then, and we'll put it between 7 and 8, where we know nothing has happened in 3 years so far.
no, and I mean, nothing against the new Resident Evil that just came out, which is more the live action TV series that's more faithful to the games.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually nice seeing fan work because you know that those people actually, grew up playing the game. Again, no disrespect to the people who are behind the Netflix adaptation, but you can tell when someone does a fan film, they actually have more knowledge, more source material to work with instead of just picking here and there.
Yeah, and I definitely no disrespect towards them. I do appreciate their desire to do something that was more accurate to the games, or at the very least, take place within that universe.
Mm-hmm.
It still doesn't really feel like it takes place in that universe, but
No.
yeah.
If anything, if anything, the CGI movies, which are actual in the same universe, are probably my favorite movies.
Yes. Yeah. So far, those are the only ones that have really kind of like nailed the at least the narrative aspects of it and the characters, and for obvious reasons. I mean, it's basically the same people who made the games make the movies, so it's.
Oh yeah, no.
I mean, there's a lot of the same voice actors, even so.
Oh no, most definitely.
Yeah.
So, fast forward 20 years later, what made you want to call it Resident Evil Breakout? Because I know there's a game called Resident Evil Outbreak.
Yeah, which I constantly confuse every time I write or try to tell somebody. I always say Outbreak and then have to correct myself. So with Breakout, see, I almost did it again. The idea for Breakout was I don't even know if I can necessarily say what it is, because there's like a bigger story that I'm kind of making over time. It's basically a feature film in parts, is how it's being done. So I don't know if
Basically, do it when you can and when you can get the people to help you do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And when we have the time, because we're working with no money. There's like no money involved with this whatsoever, except for whatever change I can pull out of my pocket. So it's it's just kind of whenever we can work on it. But I mean, as far as the title goes, I mean, Breakout, I mean, I think the whole idea is that conceptually, all of the characters, all the main characters that we've come to know and love over the years, they've kind of reached this point in their lives where they kind of need to break free from the cycle a little bit. And especially with Jill, she hasn't been around for a long time, and I kind of reasoned that maybe that's because the events of 5 did a lot of damage.
Oh no, I mean it
Yeah.
definitely did, being under the control of Wesker. Chris thinking she's been dead for who knows how many years.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and like for me, I guess on a more metaphorical scale, I guess if I want to get all like artsy fartsy about it, it's kind of about them breaking out from that cycle and finally like having this sort of last hurrah where they come together to finally actually save a city for once. And like that's what they're kind of trying to do. Like that's Jill's goal. She doesn't want to give up, and she wants to actually succeed, because like all the other cities have always like fallen, Terra Grigia and
Raccoon
City, and all of those places just got destroyed and demolished, and entire lives uprooted and destroyed. And I think it would be kind of cool for them if they had that opportunity to kind of make up for that loss, at some point. So.
And the name of this city, from what I've heard, is called Rapid City.
Yes, which is a real city. Yes.
I didn't know it was a real city.
Yes, Rapid City, South Dakota.
Okay.
Nice. About 20, no, not 20. I have maybe about 20 miles from Mount Rushmore. So.
Nice. So how'd you come about picking out the cast and everything?
Well, the first few were the easy ones. Like I said, Eric, Kay, and Bridgett. Their audition was basically our photo shoot. And because I know Kay and Bridgett very well, I've seen them perform on stage for for years, and then Kay's cosplay work and everything. So I'm very familiar with their talents. And with Eric, it was he really wanted to play the part, and I was like, okay, that's fine, we can do that. And he was great, and it was wonderful to work with him. And then Hunk is actually played by Bridget's husband, Steven. And then Trask is a new character that I came up with specifically for this movie.
Yeah, I saw that. It's like I didn't know who it was. I thought at first that was Albert Wesker, but when I saw Jill's flashbacks, like, okay, never mind. That's right. You're actually keeping with the timeline, and not.
I had thought about it after the fact. I was like, man, he does look a lot like Albert Wesker. I could have taken advantage of that, but no, I'll have to find somebody else. So because Albert might make a little brief appearance,
like a flashback scene, kind of. Nice. So who is Trask, if you don't mind me?
So he's basically he's kind of like Hunk. He was a professional mercenary for a long time, and he's a little more green though than Hunk is. So he's kind of fallen under his wing to a degree. But there's this animosity between the two of them because Trask really wants to prove himself, and Hunk just wants him to follow the rules and behave.
Keep yourself in line, Trask, or I'll do it myself.
I know how to do my job, Hunk.
We'll see.
But they work for Alyssa now. They're under her contract, and they've got this. She's formed this group that I haven't revealed the title yet, but I can reveal it here. It's not a big deal. They're called Anti-Cell, and their
basically
job is
kind of like a umbrella, but not umbrella.
Not necessarily, actually. I think their purpose is. I can't really say what that is. That's actually a spoiler. That I can't say.
That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, because that part's coming up though. Like as soon as we do part 2, then it'll finally get revealed a little bit more about what's going on with them. But I wanted to bring back at least one really obscure character because she was somebody that kind of always stuck in my mind. That was Alyssa Ashcroft.
Who is she? Is she from not Code Veronica? Is she?
Nope.
I have to look her up now. So continue. Yeah, continue. Feel free to talk more about Alyssa Ashcroft because I'm not familiar with her.
So Alyssa Ashcroft was one of the playable characters in Resident Evil Outbreak. And she was one of the survivors, and she's one of the only ones that's been, as far as I can remember anyway, she's one of the only characters from Outbreak. Yep.
Okay.
She's one of the only ones that's been referenced in a later game. I think it was 7, actually. She wrote one of the articles that brought down Umbrella.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with her, but I think it's cool that you brought a character that not many people know of, because I know Outbreak is one of those side Resident Evil games.
And it's one of those ones that, I mean, it was a good game for its time. Some of the gameplay elements are certainly dated. And I know people really complained about the lack of voice chat in that game. But I had it, but I still couldn't really play it because I could never get the PlayStation 2 network to work because it was a new thing. They didn't have, I had to get the network adapter, and then you had to get the hard drive, and it was expensive. And like to this day, I'm still not entirely sure how to hook it up. And then I just never got it to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who plays Alyssa?
That's Kelby Powers. She's actually, she was supposed to be the second DP on the movie. She kind of got cast in that part last minute. We had a little casting snafu, and we had to replace the actor really quickly. She had like a week to prepare.
It happens. They did the same thing with the girl in the first Mortal Kombat movie. Originally it was gonna be Cameron Diaz playing as Sonya Blade, so they she got her, so they had to find someone last minute. So I mean it happens,
yeah absolutely. It was and I mean, and it's having to replace actors, that's a pretty typical normal thing. I've had that happen. I've been making my own movies for 13 years. I don't think I've ever not had a casting mishap of some sort. Somebody just forgot they were supposed to be there or something else, and because I've always been working on no budget, I can't really do anything about it. They had a job or something they had to go to, so
it happens.
Yeah.
So what was it like when who played Alyssa again?
Kelby Powers.
Kelby Powers. What did she think when you offered her the role of such a obscure yet iconic Resident Evil character?
As far as I know, she thought it was pretty cool. She was caught off guard, a little off guard. I'd forewarned her that she might have to fill in, but I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So I kind of planted the seed early on, like, just so you know, something might happen, so we might need you to step into this role. And sure enough, like not even 24 hours later, I was like, yeah, I need you to step into it. And she was like, oh, okay, that's cool. She was totally game for it. But yeah, she was still memorizing lines the day that we started filming. So.
I mean, from what I've seen, the watching it is like kind of reminds me of playing one of the older Resident Evil games, how the camera doesn't really move a whole lot. Because I've noticed, like, you keep the camera really stable, and you give it that older Resident Evil vibe, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of static camera. I like the idea, or I don't like the idea of unmotivated camera movement. It's a very Fincher kind of way of looking at it. He doesn't move his camera unless he absolutely has to. I especially don't like handheld. It just bugged me. It takes me out of a movie every time I see it, every time I notice the camera twitch or move in an unnatural way. Not that there aren't appropriate places for it, but in my experience, I've never really enjoyed it myself. But yeah, I like to keep that static camera, and I like the kind of static camera angles. A lot of that is also kind of due to the fact that, we have limitations on what we can do. So, and it was a very tight space to work in, so I couldn't really fit a dolly in there at all times.
Yeah, where did you shoot, by the way? Because I know there's an exterior shot when we're seeing Jill, and then a good chunk of it takes place inside some random facility. Where did you shoot inside the facility at?
So the inside of the facility was at a place called Seraphim Theatrical Entertainment. Bridgett actually owns, her and her husband, they own a theater. They own their own theater that they do live shows at.
Nice.
Improv and plays and everything. And we're really good friends, and they offered to let me use some of the space. But we kind of had to film pretty fast to make sure we were in and out of there. And we had to kind of share the space. I think there was like a church group or something like that filming at some point, not filming, but they were doing their own thing. And so we kind of had to like maneuver around all of that. And it was pretty crazy, but I mean, it was a great space to film in. And then they had like a downstairs photo studio, which is where we shot the final scene with Kelby and Hunk and Trask. And then the exterior shot with Jill was shot just right outside the theater there. So,
I mean, again, for what you guys, again, I know fan films don't always have like a big budget, but for what you guys had, what you had to work with, I think you did a good job. How many days of shooting did it take?
It should have been at least a 3-day shoot, but we did it all in one. That was one day of filming.
That's impressive. I mean, you guys got a lot of work done. So the makeup department, the makeup crew, mind giving them a shout out and who did what on who?
Well, everybody just kind of did their own, actually. That was all the cosplayers all made their own costumes. So it was that was kind of, I told them that from the very beginning. It's like, we don't have any money, so if you wanted to play the part, you got to cosplay it and do it yourself.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like old films back in the day, sometimes if the person knew what they were doing, the actor knew what they were doing, they'll sometimes the director or someone will ask, hey, can you make like this and that for so and so?
And then there was so the zombie makeup, my friend Janelle Allward and her husband David, they do makeup professionally, but I don't know how much zombie makeup they did on the movie. I was kind of running around and I didn't know who was going to show up and who wasn't, and so they made it. And I think they might have helped with some of the zombie makeup, but they never told me. So and I know Ashley Neal, she played one of the zombies. She actually did a little bit of makeup work on Trask and Leon. And again, I had no idea she was going to be doing it. I didn't know anybody was going to be doing that. I think she had mentioned possibly doing makeup, and I was like, well, everybody's kind of on their own, so I don't know. You'll have to check with them. But I know she did some of the makeup on Eric and Cortland, who plays Trask.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how many zombies did you actually have? Because I was like, I kept on losing track, especially the scene where they were trying to break through the door to attack Claire.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, total. It was the same number of zombies every time too, almost. For the Claire scene, I want to say, let me see, there's Sarah, Janelle, David, Jacob, Ashley. So there were 6 in the door, 7 if we count Jade, the zombie that was actually like crawling towards her. And then our scoring artist Chris, he just kind of popped in, and his part actually got cut, but during the slow motion chase through the dark hall, there he originally showed up there, so there would have been about 8 total.
I mean that's still quite a bit. And
oh,
the fact
9
that,
actually, excuse me, 9. There was one more, Jason.
I mean, the fact that you even have like some of the, the main cast play some of the zombies, I think that's always cool. And if you had told me that some of them played these zombies, I wouldn't have even noticed.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And everybody pulled together and did such a great job too. I mean, I couldn't be happier and more proud of what they accomplished. It was so great.
Nice. So how'd you come about having Bridgett's husband play as another iconic character, Hunk? Because I know first time I ever heard of Hunk was in Operation Raccoon City.
So I've been familiar with Hunk since RE2 on the PS1, because you could unlock his 4th survivor mode if you were any good at the game. I wasn't. I think somebody else had to unlock it for me. And then I finally got to play the Hunk mode. And I use him all the time in Revelations 2 for raid mode. He was always one of my like favorite obscure characters. I just always thought he was a very interesting character, and I wrote him into the script kind of with the idea of having Steven play the part in the first place.
I mean, the Hunk is pretty tall, and you got a pretty tall, muscular actor.
And yeah, Steven definitely fit the part perfectly, and he did a great job with his costume. I bought the mask for him, and then we kind of put some like red gels in the eyes to give him that red look. But for the rest of the costume, he put it all together himself. And I told him, I was like, one of the nice things about playing Hunk is that nobody's ever going to see your face. So I can totally have you play another character too if I need you to.
And was that his actual voice, or was that someone else's voice?
That was his actual voice. And we didn't have to ADR it either.
Sure about this. I just want to make sure we come out on the right side of this thing. Dear Valentine, did you really think she wouldn't?
He like nailed it on set. The audio was perfect. It was spot on.
It makes it sound like he's talking through the helmet.
Yeah, exactly. And he really is. That's exactly what you're hearing is the on-set audio from what we recorded with our recorder.
And I know he's like wearing a black trench coat. And was the shirt, I could tell, was the shirt like ripped or something?
Yeah, it was a little torn up. He's been through some action already.
Okay, nice. Props. Who did you go about getting the props for like the guns and everything?
Again, everybody just kind of brought their own.
Hey, sometimes it's good to have cosplayers who have all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the cool things about working with cosplayers is like they already have it. And then Bridgett and Steven having their own theater, they have a ton of just props and stuff just sitting around in their prop shop and their costume shop. And so we could always just go grab something if we needed it, if they had it, which more often than not they did. So
nice. One of the things I want to talk about, it was actually kind of my favorite, is when we're first introduced to Alyssa. How did you go about doing that shot where you can't really see her face? Like the light is behind her and Trask and Hunk. How did you go about shooting that scene?
So that was, I think that was actually one of the few shots that we did have the dolly for. We didn't use it a whole lot, but it really was a very simple setup. And that's literally all it was just that one light. And it's a strip that had a bunch of really big LED floods on that I had actually just bought that day. It had other lights on there and they worked, but when you switched it on, you could smell them. Like they got hot really bad.
I could see definitely Alyssa, the character, sweating a bit in that scene when you have that light going on in the background.
Yeah, and with the LEDs, it was perfect because they didn't really get too hot. So they did get a little bit warm because they're floods, but they worked perfectly. And then it was just a little bit of a fog machine, spit some fog out to kind of diffuse the light a little bit, and then it kind of also darkened those shadows a little bit more. So it's just the one light, just put them behind her and put the camera dead on, and easy, simple, dramatic effect. It was a little silhouetting. It was pretty cool. It all worked out really good.
Nice. So another scene, when Alyssa is on the computer, was that like green screen or was that like an actual file you had downloaded on the computer to make it look?
Oh yeah, so there's like, oh my, I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's like it's something geeked or geek something, but it was just a random website. I actually found it uh on TikTok. There's a TikToker who posts videos like, powerful websites that you should check out. And one of the ones he showed me, it was like just a way to kill time. Somebody created this website, and it has like a bunch of different themes that makes it look like a hacker screen. And it's just a website. That's all it is. And you go to that website, and you can even make it go full screen so that it doesn't look like a website anymore. And you press certain buttons and little screens will pop up, and just like, like the little access granted or access denied, or a little file folder. And
Like,
you can sit here and type. Yeah, exactly. And you can sit here and just type gibberish, and then the words will scroll up the screen like you're typing in code or something like that. And it just so happened that they had an umbrella themed hacker screen, and I was like, that's
Nice.
perfect. That's absolutely perfect. We'll just use that. And then the surveillance footage of Jill, that was just a composite shot.
They just added in on the computer
Yeah,
screen?
I just put that in there, just shrank it down and manipulated it so that it looked flat on the screen. And
That's impressive. I mean, I know most like movies or so will use green screen, but the fact that you just use that, like just practical effects right there, that's impressive.
yeah, it was all in camera. I don't think there's anything. No, that's not true. There was one tiny bit of compositing that I did with Jill's flashback, her little nightmare sequence there. There's the fog. That's all just a composited fog from a video loop that I had.
Nice. Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. How did Bridgett feel about wearing Jill's Resident Evil 5 quote unquote evil outfit? Or was that her or was that someone else?
That was her. That was still her. She was pretty cool with it. I mean, they actually just happened to have those outfits sitting around too, because they did like a period piece play a while back that was horror themed and a vampire themed, and it was about plague doctors. And so they just had like a ton of those outfits sitting around already. And when I brought it up to her, she was like, "Oh, we can do that. I have that." And so she went and got it, and we took some photos, and then we did the movie in same outfit.
Nice.
Yeah.
So which scene would you say was probably the hardest to film out of like the entirety of it?
Ooh, the hardest to film. Probably so I don't know so much about a scene, but I know there was one shot that was really hard to get. Everything else was pretty well straightforward. Kelby and I actually got together and planned all of our shots the night before. So when we came on set, we were able to just kind of go. One of the shots, though, at the very beginning, at the slow motion shot of Jade, the zombie crawling towards Claire, the camera kind of moves with her, but it's a very heavy camera, and it's sitting so low to the ground. My follow focus wasn't working, so we had to have Kelby was like holding the camera. It ended up being like a 3-person job. She held the camera in position. Chris, the scoring artist, who happened to be there, he grabbed the handle to turn the camera for her, and then I had my hand on the focus ring to try and keep it in focus while we turned the camera and moved it with her. And we had to do that a few times, and I think that was probably the hardest shot to get. Everything else just kind of came together, and there were some good kind of spontaneous in the moment shots that we got as well. The entire opening sequence was originally supposed to be an exterior shot, but we were fighting the sun because the sun doesn't go down until like 10 o'clock at night here right now.
Oh geez.
So or at least it did back then, because it was just getting later. But so we needed the sun to go down, and we decided, we'll just do it interior. And then as we were setting up the camera for that first opening shot where you're on the doorway and it's all out of focus, when she opened up the door, and we weren't even rehearsing or anything. She just happened to open up the door after I had the light set up, and I was looking through the monitor and the camera, and I saw that light, and I was just like, you know what, that looks really cool. And Kelly was like, yeah, that does look cool. We should just do that. We're like, yeah, let's do it. So we just filmed the whole thing out of focus, and and all in like really slow motion. And it was those kind of like little moments that made it such a special experience. And it was so great having Kelby around to be able to work with somebody on that, because I'm used to actually having to do most of this stuff myself without having anybody to bounce ideas off of. So it was really, really cool to be able to do that.
Nice. And I take it everyone does their own stunts.
Yep. We're actually putting together our own stunt team for the second part of the movie.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Another thing I want to ask, the sound effects. How did you come about doing the sound effects, right? From the gunshot to the scene where Trask punches Claire in the face.
Oh man, so the punch in the face is actually a car door slam. That was the audio that I found and used. But I did most of the pretty much all of the audio and sound design at the end, and then Chris did the score, which was a fun experience. But yeah, so I just kind of found whatever sounds I felt worked, and most of it I got, from royalty stuff like story blocks and stuff like that. No current affiliation. But yeah, so most of it was kind of through that, just whatever sound effects I could get my hands on. Sometimes I would record things, but I don't do that very often because it's really hard to get it right. But yeah, like him punching her in the face, that was actually the sound of a car door being slammed. And then I think I kind of I lowered the volume and then manipulated the pitch a little bit
to make it sound like a movie punch.
Yeah. And the gunshot, that was actually it's just like a low rumble. It wasn't even really like a hit. I got it from one of the many sound effect packs that I've bought over the years, and it was just enough of a like drum hit, basically, is what it was, like a low echoey drum hit. And then I just lowered the pitch again, and it just sounded perfect. So
nice. Now I know in a lot of movies, or a lot of scenes, especially like the first scenes, are usually shot to like the middle or end. What scene did you go about shooting first when making the film?
Most of this movie was shot in order. So we started with actually Kelby's shots first. We got her angle first, because Kay was actually still struggling with her lines too, so she used that as a opportunity to go through her lines with the script in hand. I think the only thing that wasn't filmed in order, actually no, I think it was all filmed in order now that I think about it. Yeah, it was just a start to finish thing. With some of the later stuff, the outside stuff, we definitely couldn't do until the sun went down, but that didn't matter anyway because that was the last scene. So I think we shot, that's what it is. I think, yep, we shot that final scene with Kelby and Trask and Hunk, and then we shot that slow motion opening with Claire and the zombies. So that was shot out of order, but otherwise everything else was shot in order.
And who plays Trask again?
Cortland Hawkins.
What was it like casting him as a new, basically as an original character for this fan film?
So that was like one of the tricky things about that, was just trying to figure out like how we wanted Trask to look. And he actually, Cortland, he cosplays John Constantine a lot. And so he took a lot of that look straight from that character, and it worked out really well.
Especially the brown trench coat.
Nice. I think we had kind of talked a little bit about like the vest and everything, because I kind of saw him being a more like contrast to Hunk, with Hunk being more of the like the masked mercenary type, whereas Trask is more like the professional, suited up assassin type mercenary. He always wants to look dapper and look good, and it's got a little hint of arrogance there. But as far as like casting him goes, I think I don't even remember how it happened. I think I just kind of asked him if he wanted to do it, and he was like, yeah, sure.
Who would you say?
Well, because he was one of the zombies during the photo shoot, and I think that was actually the thing too, is I was like, anybody who was involved with the photo shoot is gonna get a part of some kind in the movie. That was kind of the way it went.
That's always good. Who would you say the hardest person to cast was for this? Because I know there, and like a good chunk of films, there's always that one or two actors that are like kind of hard to work with their schedule?
I think Alyssa was the hardest actually. I definitely, she was the only one that I did auditions for. And I had quite a few people audition, but and then of course we had to replace the actor at the last minute. But it wasn't like super hard. It was actually fairly easy. I had enough people audition that it wasn't a big deal. The only real conflict being, that we had to have somebody else play the part at the end.
And I'm sure everyone's lines, they took quite a while just to get down.
I felt bad for Kelby getting kind of thrown into it like that, but she did a great job. She really pulled it in for somebody who only had 24 hours to prepare, basically.
That's, I mean, that's quite, that's like a short time length, but from what I see, she played the character really well. It was like actually, seeing her in the game again.
Yeah, she did great. I really love what she did with it.
Nice. So Chris, you said he does the music behind
Chris Wheeler, yeah.
Breakout.
Yes.
How do you know him, and how did you get convince him to do the music for Breakout?
I met him through Bridgett and Steven and through the theater. I do a lot of work with the theater and a lot of photo and video work for them. And he was there on the set that night because he actually did the aerial shot at the end because he had a drone.
Oh, that was that part looked really cool, where it shows Jill having the rest of the zombies follow her to the facility.
Yeah, and when they told me that he did drone, I was like, oh, that's awesome. We should totally get that shot for the end. And he was like, oh yeah, let's get that. And so we did. And then I think it was like over the next couple of days, I was up at the theater quite a bit, hauling gear and stuff in and out. And because I was so tired, I just kind of left most of my stuff there. I just kind of took the important stuff home with me after we were done filming that night. But yeah, we got to hanging out and got to talking. And Bridgett had mentioned, I was like, hey, if you're looking for somebody to do music, Chris is a music guy. And I was like, oh, really? And he was like, oh, yes, I am. And so we got to talking, and he said he really liked the idea of making scores for films. And I was like, well, why not start here? And so he did. He got to work on the score, and there's actually a couple of really cool moments in there. Well, it's all cool, really, but the one that really stands out to me was the scene after, like when Jill first wakes up from her little nightmare. There's a music that follows. And it's actually an inverted version of the safe room theme from Resident Evil 2.
Nice.
And yeah, I was like, I don't know how many people are going to notice it, but I thought it was really cool. And I'm really glad that he did that. I thought that was awesome.
And he also did Moonlight Sonata too for the intro, right? I think
so
was Moonlight. Was that
yep, that was Moonlight Sonata. I actually got a version of it off of Storyblocks again, and we altered it. We added some vocals and stuff like that. He was originally gonna record an original version of it, but he was like, it might take a little bit longer to do that, and we wanted to have the movie done in time for a convention. So
nice. Yeah, what convention did you hold it at? Because I remember seeing, Kay share something about it. That's how I came across getting in contact with you about doing this interview.
It was Dakota Mini Nerd Con. Jade, the zombie, and also she's going to be in the next parts of the movies as well. She's the director of that con. She founded it when she was 14 years old, and it's been steadily growing over time. And she just kind of messaged me out of the blue, and she was like, hey, I was just wondering, would you mind showing the movie at the convention? And I was like, I would love to. That would be amazing. That'd be fantastic. And we decided to make that our premiere instead of doing an online thing. I decided, let's just make that the premiere of the movie. And it was really cool.
There are some cons that actually do that.
Nice. We actually just got accepted into a film festival at SuperCon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the other end of the state.
Nice.
So we're going to get another chance to show. I actually updated the thumbnail on YouTube recently. We got our first and hopefully not our last, but our first laurels for the movie. So that's cool.
Nice. So the location wise, what made you want to choose an actual city called Rapid City instead of like some made up name like for the games? I'm not docking the name because I didn't even realize when I heard Alyssa in the film say Rapid City, it's like, oh, this must be a new location. I didn't know it was an actual place.
Yeah, it is an actual place. So Rapid City, it just kind of worked out perfectly because I've always thought this, like every time I ever go to the city, I live about 40 miles away from it. But every time I go there, even when I was a kid in high school, I would always think to myself, Rapid City, RPD, Raccoon City, RPD. And I was like, that's almost perfect. Like if I ever wanted to just like cheat my way into Raccoon City, I was like, I could totally like maybe manipulate this to where it looks like Raccoon City. So yeah, it was just kind of always something that was in the back of my mind. And I liked the idea of being able to film locally and film with local talent and to have that recognizability for the locals, you know, they can go and watch the movie and be like, hey, I know that city, you know, I live there, you know, or I've been there, you know, that kind of thing. And it just worked out perfectly too. Well, and that's where Stephen and Bridget's theater is at too. So a lot of it was also convenience. It just worked out really well that everything was right there.
No,
But
I completely agree. Again, it seemed to worked out really well. Now, I know by like I said back then you had what was the original title for this 20 years ago?
House of Darkness, and the original script was a direct adaptation of the first game.
Nice. Would you ever I mean I might as well ask, would you ever consider bringing that to light on camera?
Oh, always. Like that's the dream. Although I don't know if I would do that particular script.
You may have
it
to
definitely needs to be written. You can tell it was written by a 16-year-old in high school because it reads like it.
And what was the year setting for that? Was that like 1998 as well?
Yep, because I mean that's when the game took place, was 98.
Nice.
So July.
That would be pretty cool to see a, you know, kind of like a prequel to this in a sense.
Yeah. I've always wanted to adapt the first game. That's been my dream for, like I said, over 20 years. And if I ever had the opportunity to do that, I know exactly how I would want to do it. And I think it would definitely take some substantial funds to do it the way that I have it in my head.
Oh yeah, no,
that's for sure. But I think one of the reasons I decided to go with an original story too is because I wanted to include all these characters, but also I figured a direct adaptation or an original story, I should say, would probably fall a little bit more under the radar. Because I didn't. Well, I would love it if Capcom saw it and was like, "This is cool. Keep going, keep doing it." But and I'm sure they you know right now there's no issue with it, but
no, I mean
people make fan films all the time. But
oh yeah, no, and
yeah,
you know,
I figured if we did a direct adaptation, that might actually catch more attention, and I didn't want to do that. So.
No, I get that, but again, it seemed to have worked out well. I know you can't say much about part two, but like, what can you say about part two? What people should be looking forward to when it can come out?
Part two, hopefully, like I said, we're putting together a stunt team right now because part two is a lot more action packed than the first part is. Things ramp up quite a bit.
So it's be like kind of like that, give it like Resident Evil 5 vibes.
Yeah, well, maybe not so much that, but I mean, I think more just Resident Evil movie vibes. You know, you gotta ramp things up a little bit because you can't be too subdued all the time.
Right.
You know, even the CGI movies have their action scenes and stuff, and they're very much like action scenes. And in this one, like the second part, you really get to see Jill just kind of kick some ass and make her comeback.
That'd be interesting to see. And Bridgett does her own stunts, you said, right?
Yeah, everybody is basically doing their own stunts at this point in time. So,
oh jeez, hopefully, because when I saw that scene with Trask punching Cleric, it almost looked convincing.
Yeah, well, it's all about angles. It's all about camera angles.
Nice.
He was actually like, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet away from her when he threw that punch. So,
oh man.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite scene to do was?
My favorite scene to shoot, I really liked the setup of the interrogations. But I hate to be that guy, but I'm gonna say that I don't really want to play favorites too much, but I did really like how the last scene turned out as far as the shots go and the lighting. I was very happy with that.
How did you go about doing that overhead shot? Did you use a crane or something?
The final shot,
Yeah, the one where it's the overhead shot of Jill and this
that was the
audience.
drone shot
That was a
that
drone.
Chris did. Yep.
You kept the drone staying like still. I thought it was like a crane shot or one of them tall cameras that people use in movies.
Yeah, no, he did a great job flying it and filming it, and it worked out great. We did like, I want to say 4 or 5 takes of that before we got it right. It was actually a little windy too, so he had a little bit of trouble keeping it steady at first, but eventually we got it.
What kind of drone did you use? Because the quality again, really.
Oh, I'd have to ask him. I don't even remember what kind of it was. It wasn't a very big one. It was just a tiny little guy. He's got a big one that he wants to get. It's got an even better camera on it, and that one will be pretty cool too. But I'm sure we'll get to use it.
So how long are you planning on make? Like, what's the entire length of the fan film that you're wanting it to be?
So by the time the whole story is said and done, it would probably equate to about a 2-hour movie, maybe a little longer. It's a big project. It's a very ambitious project. We'll probably be launching a fundraising campaign here pretty soon.
Well,
I'd like to have it probably up and running in time for SuperCon.
If you ever once you have a link, let me know and I'll share the hell out of that. Make sure people know about it.
Absolutely, man. That would be great. I would appreciate that. Because I think we'll probably go a slightly less traditional route with it. I don't know if we're going to do Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I'm just not. I suck at those things. I'm terrible with it, the fundraising effort. So I just have to find somebody else to do it for me. But like figuring out the perks and stuff like that, I think we might actually end up going with something more like GoFundMe. Something that's a little less traditional for it, but it's also still flexible and a little less oversaturated, I guess. I mean, we'll probably do that, and we don't need a whole lot. We're still trying to do it on as low a budget as humanly possible. So
I mean, from again, the quality and everything, and the fact that everyone provides their own stuff is always is always a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One more thing, any advice you want to give to those out there who are considering on wanting to do what you do, like make their own fan film based on something that of their own original idea or something based off a media source?
I mean, I think the only real advice I would give to somebody in that position is that it's the same advice I would give to anybody who wants to be in filmmaking in general, and that's to just go do it. Like there's really no excuse nowadays. I was a kid born in the 80s and 90s, raised in the 80s and 90s. And, back then it was hard to get your hands on a video camera. And, it was a pretty big deal. It was a special thing when you had access to that kind of stuff. But now everybody has a camera. Everybody's got a camera in their pocket, or, somebody who's got a camera in their pocket.
Or their, phone.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's your phone, and the cameras on here. I mean, these are just fine. Like this works just fine.
Oh yeah, you can get some pretty good quality stuff with a decent camera phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I mean, I think that's really what it is. Just go do it. Get your friends together. It's a fan film. If you want to raise money for it, great. But I mean, you don't need it. I mean, you can't make money off of it. It's a fan film, so you might as well just go shoot it.
All right.
Get your friends together and make it a fun project. Try not to take it too seriously if it's a fan film. If it's an original film that's not based on anybody else's work, then maybe definitely take it a lot more seriously. Maybe try to raise some money for it. But yeah, if you're just making a fan film, just go have fun. Go have fun. Make whatever you want. It doesn't matter if it fits in the universe or not. That's the whole point of being creative and making your own fan film, is that it's like fan fiction. You can do whatever you want with them.
I honestly agree on that. Now, I also got to ask: do you plan on and you can answer this, or you can answer that? Do you plan on having a blooper reel for this film?
I want to put one together. I just haven't had the time yet. We do have some bloopers. I don't know how many great bloopers we have, but we do have some bloopers.
Man, that'd be pretty fun to see. Well, I think that should honestly do it again. Ryan, thank you for coming on to talk about what it was like making Resident Evil Breakout, and also, looking forward to seeing the next part and eventually seeing this whole film come all together.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And again, I'm Wayne the Unknown. Thank you for watching this episode of Geeking Out. As always, thank you for listening, and until next time, thank you for watching.
Tell Andrew, go tell Andrew, go tell Andrew that